or any sort of symbol for this very widespread attempt to exterminate Christianity. It's still going on in this country in a polite form, usually in the name of separation of church and state. But it is an attempt to wipe out Christian tradition, especially to exclude it from public life. And this is one of the great liberal causes, as Peter Viereck, conservative of the last generation, once observed. Anti-Catholicism is the anti-Semitism of the intellectuals, the bigotry of the tolerant, as it were. Notice, too, the vocabulary of liberalism. Liberalism can't tell you to go to hell because it doesn't believe in hell. What does it do? It consigns you to the past, calls you a caveman, antediluvian, reactionary, outmoded, 13th century or 18th century, whatever. I think its favorite curse word is medieval. What could be worse than that? The Middle Ages, the time when civilization was Catholic, a liberal's nightmare. So the great liberal categories are progressive and reactionary. And the progressive is that which takes us furthest from the Catholic era of the Middle Ages. The reactionary is that which takes us back toward the Middle Ages. Notice when you get past the Middle Ages, it gets better again, right? The ancient world was okay. The Greeks and the Romans, wonderful. Even though, of course, they did have slavery and sodomy and pederasty and infanticide and crucifixion and a number of other amusements. That's okay. In the alienated mind, the ancient world tends to be glorified. Another classic of the last century, Fustel de Coulanges, The Ancient City, really demolished that idea. He showed just how bleak and harrowing the pagan world really was, how ridden with superstition and cruelty it was. Everything liberals say about the Spanish Inquisition was basically true of daily life in the ancient world. By the way, speaking of the Spanish Inquisition, you know, over about 3 centuries, 3 1/3 centuries, the Spanish Inquisition executed perhaps 5,000 people. Now, that was a slow week for Lenin, Stalin, Hitler. But yet, the Spanish Inquisition remains a liberal byword for the Dark Ages. The Dark Ages themselves, though their history is somewhat in the dark, actually a lot has been recovered now, and it's probably no longer appropriate to speak of it that way. But the Dark Ages were the greatest era of genuine moral progress in human history. And again, the alienist ideology turns everything on its head. But if you think about it, it was during the Dark Ages that Europe was rid of infanticide, abortion. Of course, that's a black mark against it for the liberal. But, you know, this kind of male domination of the paterfamilias, where a man could whimsically divorce his wife. Crucifixion and other forms of torture were abolished, though some remain. And of course, the medieval civilization is blamed for everything it didn't get rid of. You'd think it had invented all these things when they were merely survivals. But slavery disappeared, and before it disappeared, it was humanized, because the slave was the equal of the freeman, and the freeman had duties to his slave, because both had immortal souls. Well, St. Paul says so, in fact. He doesn't say we must abolish slavery. He simply says that a Christian slave and a Christian freeman are one in Christ. So servants or slaves were to be obedient to their masters.